What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we are going to be looking at my big board for 2024 fantasy football quarterbacks. The great thing about the quarterback position in fantasy football is that unless you're doing like some different league with some really different rules compared to everybody else, the quarterback position is very consistent through just about every league, whether you're in a super flex league, a PPR, or non-PPR league. The quarterback position is consistent. Looking at other positions like receiver, running back, of course, if you're in a PPR league, things tend to change a lot, but with the quarterback position, it's relatively consistent throughout every league. This position is very undervalued in fantasy, in my opinion. If you're able to get a high-end quarterback with a later pick, I think that's just incredible value, and being able to add that to your team is very essential. But with that being said, this is my quarterback list. You can already see it on your screen right now, but I'm going to be going through it and explaining just about everybody on this list. If you guys disagree with anything you see or any of my explanations, let me know in the comment section below. I respond to all the comments down there. With that being said, let's go ahead and get right into this video. Starting with the top 4 quarterbacks in fantasy: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. These guys have been like the top 4 for the past 3 to 4 years now. All of them very good, very consistent. All of these guys are great options, whether you're in an 8-man league or a 16-man league. It doesn't matter. All 4 of these guys bring great value. All 4 of them can use their legs as well as push the ball downfield. We all know this already. The one thing that a lot of people might disagree with is having Josh Allen at the top of tier 1 still, even after losing Stephon Diggs. I think Josh Allen is just that good, even if he does turn the ball over, which is obviously going to come with all the good that comes with Josh Allen. The turnovers are going to happen. But even if that does happen, I still think he's the best quarterback in fantasy. An argument can be made for Lamar Jackson, maybe even Jalen Hurts. But I think in terms of potential and like every quarterback ceiling, I think this is how the top 4 should look, especially because of how consistent these guys are. But a guy that has a very high ceiling that could potentially break into the top 4 is Anthony Richardson. He only played 4 games last year, which is crazy. Those 4 games were incredible. He put up some great fantasy numbers. His potential with the ability to use his legs and run the ball, as well as pass the ball, push the ball downfield with his arm, is just incredible. He's a complete package when it comes to fantasy. The only question with him, as well as a lot of other guys on this list, is whether or not he can stay healthy. In just 4 games last year, he suffered 2 very serious injuries. Of course, the concussion and the shoulder injury, which ended up putting him out for the whole rest of the year. So that is a serious concern. But if you're willing to take a risk, especially later on in your draft, if Anthony Richardson is still available past like round 4 or 5, I would definitely consider selecting him. The last quarterback I have in tier 1 is CJ Stroud. I think there is a bit of a drop-off between the top 4 and 5 in CJ Stroud, just because I think of anybody in tier 1, he probably is the worst at using his legs, isn't the fastest guy or the most elusive guy, but his potential throwing the ball is absolutely through the roof. This year, I think he's going to be just as good as last year, if not better. And last year, he put together a very, very good fantasy year. But that's tier 1 for me. If you disagree with anything, and if you think any of these guys in tier 2 should move up, let me know in the comment section below. Or if you think guys like CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson should be lower. But anyways, let's move on to tier 2. I think the next 3 to 4 guys in tier 2 are definitely worth drafting as starting quarterbacks. Of course, we got Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott. Not a lot needs to be said about them. They've been pretty consistent fantasy options for like the past 4 to 5 years now, so we can move on from them. Kyler Murray, I think this guy has a lot of potential. We've been saying this about Murray for like the last 4 or 5 years, but he's never been able to put together like an incredible fantasy year just because it's been hard for him to stay healthy, and the weapons he has around him have just not been that good. Arizona is in a tough spot right now. I think Kyler Murray's only had like 1 or 2 good, really, really good fantasy years, even though he could be a top 5 quarterback every single year if he's able to stay healthy. There's obviously a risk with Kyler Murray. Similar thing to Anthony Richardson. If you're able to get him later on in the draft, I think it's a steal. But, of course, there is a risk. Rounding out my top 10 fantasy quarterbacks for 2024, I got Jordan Love. A lot of potential as well, just like CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. I think we know what we're getting out of Jordan Love, similar to CJ Stroud. He's able to use his legs, just not to the degree of the guys in like the top 4 or 5. But his arm is obviously incredible. Only problem is the Packers don't have a great amount of weapons for him to use. They're going to be running the ball a lot, similar to last year, just going off play action. Jordan Love is going to be able to push the ball downfield, though, which is why I think he's still a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. The next few guys, I'm not sure if you can really consider them starting quarterbacks on a consistent basis. To me, the top 10, I would draft them as a starting quarterback and feel comfortable. This next 4 to 5 is probably the gray area. Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert. Now that I'm looking at this, might actually move Justin Herbert above a couple of these guys just because he's a little bit more consistent. Even if the team isn't as good, I just think he's more consistent. In fantasy football, of course, having a guy that breaks out of nowhere and has a few good games is incredible, but you just want to see consistency, especially if your quarterback position isn't as much of a worry for you and you just need a guy that can do the job, get 15 to 20 points. Consistency matters a lot to me. That's why Justin Herbert's better than a guy like Brock Purdy or Tua in fantasy, even though these guys have the potential to strike for 30, potentially 30 to 40 points any given game because the teams they have around them are so good. Justin Herbert's obviously a better quarterback in real life than both of these guys just because the ceiling is way higher, but the teams they have around them do matter, which is why they're all so close together. But nonetheless, let's move on to one of the more interesting parts of this list. The rookie quarterbacks. I threw 2 rookie quarterbacks in tier 2. I think out of all the rookies, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are definitely the best. Just in general, these two are the best quarterbacks in my opinion. But also, the teams they have around them are just by far better than any of the other guys I mentioned. Of course, you could make the argument that JJ McCarthy has weapons like Justin Jefferson, but I don't think he's as good, especially using his legs like a guy like Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. Obviously incredible throwing the ball, but the ability to use their legs gives them such a high ceiling. I think after just a few games, they could potentially move up into tier 1. But these two guys, watch out for them in fantasy because they're going to be great, especially later on in the draft. If you're just looking for maybe a backup, but a guy that you can trust to maybe step in a couple games, these two guys are definitely the guys I'm looking at. They have tremendous amount of potential in fantasy, so definitely watch out for them. But that's it for tier 2. In tier 3, I have a few guys that you could potentially consider starting. Maybe they could give you a good 14 to 17, 18 points per game. They are consistent. They just don't have that ability to strike for 25 to 30 points on any given week. Now, the only exception to that might be Trevor Lawrence, who could potentially go for 25-30 if he's able to make that leap this year. But for right now, I'm just going to play it safe and put him in tier 3. The consistency right now is just not there yet. But as for the guys behind Trevor Lawrence, I ended up reorganizing this part of the list a few times actually, but it doesn't really matter too much. All these guys are in similar levels to me. Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, even Baker Mayfield, all similar in terms of the fact that they're going to be consistent, give you a few 15 to 20 games, but that's about it. Nothing crazy. These are the last few guys. I guess forgot about Deshaun Watson. He has decent potential, but once again, just really not sure about him in terms of the consistency. Similar guy to Trevor Lawrence where he can potentially get 25 to 30 point games, but the inconsistency is just to an even greater level. But those are my top 3 tiers in my quarterback big board. This is my top 23. These are the only guys that I would really even consider drafting. We're going to scroll down a little bit. To be honest with you, I barely changed anything in terms of the guys down here. You see Justin Fields at the top of tier 5. I had no idea where to put him. If he was starting, I would throw him as high as tier 2 or 3, but it's just unfortunate. All of these guys, I would not consider drafting. You only see a few starting quarterbacks here. Guys like Will Levis, Daniel Jones. I'm actually going to move Russell Wilson up to the top of this tier. I don't know, man. I mean, Russell Wilson doesn't bring consistency or potential, which is why I couldn't move him up to tier 3. He's just there. He'll be a decent, if you have no other option, Russell Wilson is your only option. That's okay. It's fine. But the rest of these guys, it's just there's not much value here. Some of these guys are just in unfortunate situations like a Sam Howell or these rookie quarterbacks. But I think these rookies definitely have time to move up this list. But that's my list. Once again, I'll show you the bottom 3 tiers. If you have anything to say, let me know in the comments section below. I, once again, did not change much of this at all. But that's that. And then once again, the top 3 tiers, what actually matters, of course. The guys that you could actually consider drafting in your draft. But that's going to do it for this video, man. I mean, that's my quarterback tier list of fantasy football, of course. Once again, this does not apply to real life. My real life rankings would be a lot different than this, first of all. If you want to see my real life rankings, I'll leave a link in the description down below. That video was a lot of fun as well. This is just fantasy football, once again, just to make that clear, so none of you get mad at me for putting, I don't know, Josh Allen above Patrick Mahomes or Anthony Richardson in the top 5, I guess. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys want to see running backs, receivers, and tight ends, I will definitely make those as well. And you guys just let me know in the comment section below and that will come as well. If you guys showed love on this video, I'll definitely do that. But that's going to do it for this one. Let me know in the comments what you agree or disagree with. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. But that's it for me. I'll see you all in the next one.